and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am really excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. And today on the podcast, I am really excited to be joined by Alexandra Charles. Born and raised in Sydney, Australia, Alexandra has been a professional dancer her whole life, with her performance career bringing her to the USA in 2014. Alexandra found yoga early on to help heal some injuries and meditation to assist in centering and finding balance. Her approach to both is with holistic, real-world tools and practices, and most of all, to make things enjoyable and accessible for anybody. She opened her studio, Soul Tribes Yoga and Meditation, in Houston, Texas in 2019, where she strives to help people cultivate self-awareness, strength, stability, mind, and body balance, a heart-centered yoga practice, compassion, tools for breathwork, and mindfulness. So in this episode of the podcast, we're talking about what it was like to open a yoga studio just months before the pandemic happened, how Alexandra and her team were able to keep the studio afloat, what her experience as a studio owner has been like, and especially a studio owner who's offering these more gentle, softer practices, as well as her tips for running a yoga business and a yoga studio, and much more. So this episode is jam-packed with goodness. I hope that you guys enjoy it. And without further ado, here is Alexandra. Alexandra, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. And I'm curious, where are you joining me from today?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Oh, amazing. Nice. I'm in central Mexico, so you're just like kind of directly north of me.
I'm above you. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. And so
you're probably a bit warmer than what we are here.
We actually you guys have way hotter summers than we have in Texas, which is funny because I'm higher altitude.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So not like the hottest part of Mexico, but it's definitely like winter here. I feel like wrong saying that as a Canadian because it's like not winter, but it like is winter. Like it's pretty chilly here right now. So I feel like this time of year, our climate's almost the exact same. I have two good friends in San Antonio, and we're usually within like 1 or 2 degrees of each other.
Okay. So you're that makes sense then if you're a higher altitude, because I guess I'm just thinking of Mexico in general. I'm like, beautiful all the time.
I know. Everyone's like, it's tropical all the time. I'm like, no, I'm in like a sweater, my slippers. I've got a space heater on. Canadian government's coming for my passport now.
No. Hey, at least you don't have to deal with snow anymore.
This is true. Amazing. So I'm curious if you can tell me a little bit about your yoga journey. Can you tell me a bit about how you first got into yoga, what inspired you to become a yoga teacher, all that good stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've actually been a professional dancer my whole life. So I started when I was about, I think, 4 as a little ballerina. And I had a great career. I loved it. And when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to have something else besides dancing to, keep fit and, exercise. But I've never liked running, and lifting weights wasn't as popular back then as it is now. So I started doing yoga. I actually really got into the strictness and discipline of Bikram, which is, was just in its highlight at that time. We're talking about 15 years ago. And then I started Kundalini, and then from there it kind of snowballed into Vinyasa and Hatha and Yin, and just I was like, let me absorb everything. And so alongside my dancing career, I was doing yoga 5-6 days a week. I was really just enjoying how it was helping me physically with a lot of the injuries that I had I was going to say created, but I'm like, oh, I mean, but I did create my injuries from dancing, but the injuries that I had throughout, dancing for so long. And so it was helping me with that. It definitely helped with my mind. And then I just fell in love with it for quite a few years. And when I moved to America in 2014, it just happened that the yoga studio that I started going to was having a training. And I thought, oh, this just lines up perfectly, doesn't it? So I did my 200-hour training there and started teaching I don't even think I graduated and they already asked me to start teaching classes. So
Wow.
I think probably my dancing and modeling and acting had all definitely helped be able to just jump into that role of, teaching and, being in front of so many people. Because I think that that's definitely, a lot of yoga teachers that I know, I've found this with my trainees. It's that fear of talking in front of people, but I've been performing my whole life. So I was like, okay. But yes, I started teaching. And then from there, I've been teaching since the beginning of 2015, I think it is. And, yeah, I just kept doing different trainings and learning and growing. And, now we're here in the very end of, very beginning of 2023, 2024. And yeah, I have a studio. We actually just turned 4 years old. Woo.
Oh, congratulations. That's exciting.
So we made it. We made it through some very interesting years. But yeah, so that's kind of my story. I'm not sure if I left anything out or what we're going to delve into more. But yeah, that was kind of my quick progression of how I got to now.
Hey, yoga teachers, do you work for a small studio that is in need of a reliable software solution? Too often, the smaller businesses out there get stuck using a complex software solution that's too expensive and a poor fit for their business needs. Paying too much for software features they don't need or use is literally throwing money away. But our friends at Offering Tree have stepped up to help folks just like you. They recently released a version of their studio software for boutique studios called Studio Lite. This package comes with all the features you need to run your studio, including marketing automation, staff payroll, details reporting, and more. And it comes with a low price tag, a brilliant support team, and customized migration to make the transition from one software to another as seamless as possible. What more could you want? You can go ahead and book a quick demo with Offering Tree to learn more. Use the link offeringtree.com/MBOM to access my partner discount of 50% off your first 3 months or 15% off your first annual Studio Lite plan. Once again, that's offeringtree.com/MBOM to get started. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it's really inspiring to hear. And I'm curious kind of what inspired, obviously you were pre-pandemic. We couldn't have predicted what was about to happen in 2020. But I'm curious, like, what inspired you to open your studio?
Yeah. So I'll try to keep a long story short. I had lived in America. I was actually in Vegas first because I was performing over there. I kind of got done with Vegas, just the life, the city itself, after about just under 2 years. And I had an opportunity to move to Houston. Loved Houston, and, taught in the hot yoga scene because that's kind of what's here, and the power yoga scene. And then I actually went back to Australia to be with my family for some family things. And so I was there for about 8 or 9 months. And in that time, I really got to experience yoga again from a different perspective, just because it's just different over there. Not bad, not better, not worse. It's just different. And it made me find the beauty in slowing down because I had been nonstop for my entire life, including, yoga practice of hard and, yes, and do more. And I went back and I just found the beauty in some of the most incredible teachers back there that I got to work alongside and then, in turn got to learn so much from. And I just started slowing down and finding that rest point. And from there, when I decided to come back to Houston, I really wanted to come back with even more of a purpose, right? A bit of a big life goal purpose. I'd, done a lot of my performing. I was, happy about it. I was in my early 30s and I thought, let me I want to come back with even something bigger. And it had always been a little pipe dream to, oh, imagine if I had a studio one day. That would be cool. And when I decided to come back, I thought, well, this is actually now a possibility. And if I do come back, I want to do something big, for myself. And I definitely felt that there was a missing niche in Houston where there's so much they're fantastic studios, by the way, but there's a lot of hot studios, a lot of power yoga studios. A lot of studios do use a lot of music. I found that there wasn't as many studios that do many classes in yin yoga. And so one thing that I noticed is like most studios don't do any meditation. And and if they did, it was a 10-minute quick meditation while you're in Shavasana at the end of a yoga class. And the magic of meditation for myself over the last 15 years, at that time was, 11 years. And I just thought, I want to create a blend of both. I want to have a studio where you can have both. And so I came back with that excitement to create something that I thought, okay, we don't have this in Houston. We have it, but it's all separated and in different places. Or let me come back and create a studio that is non-heated and is more gentle and has yoga and meditation classes that are, full classes in themselves. And, something that is appealing to people that, are not the young, fit, wants to take selfies in class people, but are the people that maybe, haven't done yoga their entire life and are a bit older and want to come and, just move their body and don't want mirrors in front of them where they're going to critique themselves, or, just to find a slower, calmer, very gentle space. And so from all of that and finding that niche, Soul Tribes Yoga and Meditation was created. And and then it was all before 2020. So it was 2018, I started looking for spaces and working on my business plan and my structure and, looking at what area is going to be best, for my target market and, all the good business things that you should do when you're about to open a business, so that all your options. And then we started building. We found our space and we started building and doing construction in 2019. Took a little bit longer, which is so common for every business. But then we opened actually in December 2019.
So like 3 months before the pandemic.
3 months, exactly. It was, here in Texas, we had to shut our doors. We were made to shut our doors. It was like 3 days before we turned 2 months old.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it was not fun. But
so what did you do? Because that's like, I was working with a couple studios at the time, and like I think one of them is 15 years old. It's gone through like 2 different owners, but it's still like, it's well known. It's got solid clientele. The other one I think was 2 or 3 at the time. And like both of them, thank God, survived the pandemic. But I feel like I heard of a lot of people who opened businesses in 2019 who were not able to survive. So what a amazing blessing that you were able to. And I want to hear like what you did.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So definitely very grateful. I have to say I'm very grateful for our members, because we had some members, I think even in that 3 months that we were open, and, I had been in the Houston community for a long time. So I had a lot of people that already loved me and what I offered. And, I think that in that 3 months, I opened with a bang. Like we had so many classes. I was trying to do as much as I could to get our name out there and, go strong, because we have a decent sized space. It's 2,200 square feet. We have 2 separate rooms plus a big open lobby space.
Wow.
So in that 3 months, we did pretty well with our members. And I think that our members could see what we were trying to offer. And we had some great members. Some of them aren't with us anymore just because, 4 years, some have moved away and things like that. But we had members that when it happened, emailing me just saying, hey, we don't want you to close. So please keep my membership running.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you do classes online or not, we don't want you to fail, which
Yeah.
of course was just so beautiful. And it just helped push me to be like, okay, I need to sort this out and I need to do the best for all of these members that I possibly can. And obviously myself as a business owner, I don't want to fail when it's not even me that's failing. Um, so within about a week, I managed to we cut down our schedule because we had so many classes. So cut down our schedule, managed to get a lot of virtual classes on. So ran that virtual thing. Had the teachers that were happy to teach virtual teaching. I had to reassess everything, which was very exhausting.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure, especially after you've
yeah.
spent all this time like constructing a space, building a business, and you open and you're like, hell yeah, I did this.
Mhm.
Right? Like a little bit of relief comes and it's like you don't even have
And
time
I
to
was like,
catch your
oops.
breath before it's like, oh, how about you
Yeah.
pivot your business?
Exactly. It was a lot. And I think that,
Mm-hmm.
that just fight or flight was just, I was on such high alert and, I made it work, which was great. But the burnout definitely came later on. But yeah, so I pivoted, we did virtual and we just tried to make it as appealing for our members as possible. And then being in Texas, we did get to, the government did end up saying like our governor said that, we could open a lot sooner than some other states. So I definitely
Mm-hmm.
feel for people that were in other states that had to stay closed for longer. But I was one of the studios that did open. Literally, we had a 6 a.m. yoga class on the day that we were allowed to open, because I was just like, I can't. I don't know how much more I can survive if I stay shut. And yeah, I knew that people were wanting it. I knew that we were taking all precautions to make sure that people felt comfortable and that we felt comfortable. And yeah, I was like, I'm ready. Like, if people can go to a grocery store or a big box store, they can come and be with 8 other people in a 1,000-room yoga space. Yeah, they're not getting anywhere near each other. They don't even, like, we even had where the door was wide open before classes, so like no one had to touch anything. Like, it was, we just tried to do our best to be like, okay, how can we make people feel comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it was great. And we had so many people saying, thank you for opening. Like, I need this because, a lot of people were not in a bad place mentally. So yeah, so we kept our virtual classes and we still have our virtual classes. So
Oh, that's cool.
we ended up just incorporating it in a way that is sustainable. And I think we have about 10 people that are on virtual unlimited monthlies that's their class. They do it every morning. It's actually worked great with their schedules because they can do it before, while their kids are having breakfast, and then they close and take them to school or, at night. And so we've ended up keeping it. And it's, sometimes there might only be one or two or three people on virtual, but that's one or two or three people that love still doing their practice. And it's like, great, well, we've already made it work. So why don't we just keep it?
Yeah.
So
So do you run hybrids with those classes or those virtual only?
no, every class is a hybrid. So
Cool.
so we don't have a separate only virtual where a teacher's only teaching to them, but we have
Mm-hmm.
it set up in a way in the studio where we have actually a really big TV screen on in
Mm-hmm.
one corner of the yoga room, and the teacher has her micro or his micro, whoever's microphone. We have male and female teachers, and yeah, they just set it up. It's all through Zoom still. And yeah, so a teacher will teach to the class in front of them, and every now and again they might check the TV and they can see someone. So if they can see that someone needs maybe that personal, like, oh hey, Amanda, step your foot a little further left or whatever it is, just like they would to the people in the room. So everyone's getting a live experience, which is fun, and I think our virtual people enjoy that because then they still feel like they're a part of things. Same as when they check into class and there's Zoom, like we're greeting them just like we're greeting anyone else that's coming in to the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still
Yeah,
that
that's awesome.
connection and that community feel.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's amazing. Would you say outside of the hybrid classes, things have gone like basically back to quote unquote normal
Yeah.
for the studio?
Yeah. Yes, I would. I would. So the one thing that I guess it was never normal for us because we were so new anyway. But,
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, I'd say that sounding really old, but you know what I mean? Classes were mat to mat. We used to have mat to mat classes, and, I used to have some classes that I would go to, at other studios, and someone's mat would be on top of my mat. I'm like, this is so packed. One thing for us is we also found a niche where we decided to not go to our actual room capacity. So we keep it as a max of 22. Obviously, if someone turns up, we're not going to turn them away, but 22 to 24 people in our yoga room, which is again 1,000 square foot space. And with that, we found people love that they come and they know that they're not going to be packed in like sardines. So I think, again, our demographic enjoy knowing, hey, someone might be kind of close to me, but they're not going to be that close that their arm's going to hit me or I'm going to get a foot in the face.
Yeah.
So that's probably the only thing that hasn't, I guess, been normal as in what happened beforehand. So we've just kind of kept those class limits, but hey, it works and people enjoy it, and we have a lot of classes. So if someone misses one class, they just come to the next one.
Yeah.
So
No, that's perfect. I mean, I think it's like creating like an experience, right? And I think
yeah,
you can just take the pandemic out. I feel like it's obviously people have their feelings about that. And I think there are some people that are like just really don't want to be touched since the pandemic. But
yeah,
also I feel like just in general, it's like nice to have a little bit of space, right? Like you can
yes.
be, it takes you out of your flow if you go into a twist and you put your arms out and you're like
And you're
touching
like, I've
another
just touched
woman's
a
boobs.
stranger. Hello. Yeah, you're like,
Like
oh,
a
calm
casual
down.
boob grace here, my
Yeah.
bad.
Like when you're forward folding, you're like, oh my God, my head is about to hit your bottom.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to
Yeah.
like not have to worry about like obviously you have to be conscious of your space and the people around you. That's just a part of being in space with other people. But I think it's nice not to have to worry. You can flow a little bit more, get into your zone if you've got a
Yeah.
little bit
Well,
more like physical space.
exactly. And because we do make everything a little bit more gentle, we have a lot of yin yoga classes. People like that space because then I think
Mm.
that it helps people to relax more when they do have a little bit of space around them rather than, okay, I'm relaxing and I'm meant to relax, but I have a stranger literally touching my elbow. That's a different feeling, I think, for most people. Whereas, if we're saying be gentle, turn inwards, and you're like, cool, I can turn inwards and I feel like I've got a bubble of space around me, definitely makes
Mhm.
it easier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you'd mentioned the meditation piece before, which I wanted to come back around to. And then you just mentioned having more gentle classes. So I'm curious, it seems like you guys are been really successful, which is amazing. But how has that been, I guess, kind of received by people in terms of, these gentler styles, the meditation? 'Cause that's definitely what I kind of turned to in this chapter of life and after practicing for so long. But I very much started like you did, looking for the hot, the fast, the sweaty, a workout. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there who, if you're not sweating and working out, they're kind of like, am I even doing anything? So I'm just curious how that's been received, especially in such like a big major city in the US.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been, I'll start with saying it's been received very well, right? So we're doing great. We have had people, of course, that will come and then be like, "Oh, can we not like do more, or can we not like can't we go faster, or like we'll intentionally be like, hey, can you slow down? Like we're trying to be a breath focused practice and breathing deeply, breathing intentionally, and there's no way you're breathing intentionally with how fast you're going, or so there's definitely people that come to us and then they're like, oh, this isn't for me. And it's like, that's fine. Not every studio is right
Hmm.
but I feel like we have so many people that love it because they finally have a place that they can go and they can slow down. So we have such a wide demographic of people of all ages, sizes, abilities. And, you know, we we've even had people say, I love that I can come. And I know that I could come 5 to 7 days a week and I won't burn myself out. Right.
Amazing.
And that was one of my things too, is like, let's create something that can be a sustainable practice, which, in my 20s, it was sustainable for me to do, like we mentioned, hot, fast, like power, the most intense is whatever. But in my late 30s, like that's not sustainable. I can't do that every single day. Well, I can for a week or two, and then I'm burnt out. I need a break.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for
so,
sure.
yeah, it's been received fantastic. And, again, there's going to be people that are going to come and be like, oh, this is too slow for me. Or, we don't play music in any of our classes. So people are like, oh, I can't because there's no music. It's like, okay. Like I know some other fantastic studios that do. But then we have people that like, we've had some people with us now for the whole 4 years and they just keep coming. We have some people that are members with us and all they do is come to our yin yoga classes, but we have 1 to 2 yin yoga classes every day and they will come. Like we have one of our gentlemen I'll mention here, I won't say his name, but he's an older gentleman that comes to us. He's a very, very sweet man. And he will even come and do like 1 yin class in the morning and goes about his work. He was telling me that he's working on his garage at the moment for a project and then comes in at night so that he can unwind from working in his garage and does his second yin class at night.
I love that.
Yeah. So we, I think like any studio, find what your demographic is, find the people or, navigate like, what do you want to be and who are you targeting? But, the people that go to yoga classes and they want to take selfies in the mirror and, which is totally fine, by the way, but, they're going to come to our studio and probably not like it. They're probably going to be like, that's really boring.
Which is okay. I feel like this is such an important lesson for people listening. Like you can't be something for everyone. And if you're trying to be something for everyone, you're kind of not really anything for anyone, right? Yes. That's like the whole, like, that's tried and true kind of marketing strategy. Exactly. And I feel like it's really hard in theory. Like it's easy to say that, right? But it's like harder to put it into practice because we want everyone to feel welcome in our space. And it's not that you're not welcoming those types of people. It's just like there's probably a vibe and an energy fit and also just like a desire. And if they desire something different, then it's like, yeah, we're not for you. Be happy to recommend another studio in the area for you. And it's like, you can't, start adding classes or changing what you're currently doing just to fit the needs of other people who maybe don't like love what you're doing right now.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. And that's exactly right. Like, it's not that anyone's not welcome. We are so inclusive. We're so happy for anyone to come and join us. But the reality is like, we're not going to change what we're doing because one person wants something differently, because you just can never make everyone happy. But, yeah, and you're right. Like originally I've had people say, well, why can't you put mirrors up? Or can't you just at least put like 1 or 2 hot classes on the schedule? And I just had to stick to my guns and be like, no, I'm sorry, we can't. Like, that's not what we're doing. And I don't want to get to that place where we have, 10 to 20 different types of classes and you're going to have to navigate. Like, no, this is what we do. And we would love you to join us. But if it's not your vibe right now, that's okay. But yes. And I've recommended other studios to people. I'm like, hey, this place does a little bit more powerful flows and they're a bit more heated. So, and they're just down the road, like they would be fantastic for you. So, but yeah, you said it perfectly. It's putting it in practice. It can definitely be challenging because you yourself have to be strong enough to stick to your guns. And I just had to be like, cool, like I'm okay with not conflict as in hard conflict, but that butting heads with people because, I can't do everything for everyone. Right. So yeah, like even down to music, like I had some teachers be complaining about, they wanted to play their music, when we first started and I was like, no, like, sorry. And they're like, oh, but it's my class. I'm like, yeah, but this is my studio and this is the feel. And, which actually was fantastic after everyone came back from not being able to be in studio, because it was my in to be like, you know what, actually, we're not doing any music in any vinyasa classes. And I was like, because otherwise it's distracting for the people on Zoom. and, and then it just ended up becoming our norm, like
Yeah.
of no music. People love it. Now it's just the normal of the
Mhm.
space.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a quick break from the episode to talk about productivity. It seems like every one of you desperately wants to do more, to be more efficient. At least that's what I keep hearing about. It's what I keep seeing online. And I wanted to share a little bit about my new favorite elixir that's helped me stop procrastinating and puts a little pep in my step in the mornings. It's called Magic Mind. Magic Mind is the perfect way to start your day. It comes in shot form, or you could turn it into a latte. It's made with matcha. It's got ashwagandha in it. It's got lion's mane mushrooms, cordyceps mushrooms, and so much more. And this is one of my favorite parts of my morning routine because it helps me feel more productive and more focused, helps me get more done in less time. And I also have less stress and anxiety because it doesn't give me those coffee jitters that take my energy way up and then crash hugely. Instead, it helps me have consistent energy through the day thanks to its amazing ingredients. So if you're like me and you want to be more productive, if you want to get more done in less time, then you can head on over to magicmind.com/MBOM and use the code MBOM20 to get 20% off your first order. Once again, that's magicmind.com/MBOM. And when you're checking out, put in the code MBOM20 to get 20% off. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I love that. And so I'm curious, we've talked a little bit about, some of the things you've learned and pieces of advice and stuff, but do you have any other kind of tips for anyone who's listening, who's like maybe thinking that they want to open/run their own studio?
Yeah. And I don't want to sound harsh, but I want to say to people that if you're in the yogi mindset and you're like, oh, I just want to open a studio and everything's going to be so amazing and it's just going to be all about love and energy and, everything's going to be peachy, definitely sit down with yourself and check in if you can handle hard times, right? Because I can assure you it is not always going to be peachy and it is not always going to be good vibes only and easy and fun. And you are going to have to make hard decisions to make sure that you don't go bankrupt, right? Like, I think that that's one thing is like yes, I was a yogi and I had all those great vibes, but I also opened my studio as a business person. I come from a family of entrepreneurs and business owners. And so I really came at it from that space. So I did all my numbers and I did all my projections and I had to look at, who is in the 3-mile radius of where I'm looking at opening. What is the demographic? What is also due to be built over the next 5 years? Like, I think that, I keep the passion, because if you don't have passion when it gets hard, it's going to be horrible. But definitely you need to sit down and look at it from a business point of view. And like, how can you be business minded about it if you want to create something that will succeed and keep moving forward? Because good vibes does not pay your electricity bill,
This is true.
and your good, yeah, and your good
Be
vibes
great
do
if
not
they
pay.
did.
Oh my gosh, I'd be like, wee. And your good vibes and good intentions don't pay your teachers, right? And so I think that you definitely want to have, a beautiful mix of all the love and the passion and the joy of being a yogi, but definitely take the time to sit down and do the business side, because it's tough, and I would hate to have anyone, go into it and then be in debt, and go bankrupt. Like, what a horrible experience that, because you didn't think of, hey, I really got to look at business, which
Yeah.
can be challenging. But like for me, I knew that my strong point wasn't bookkeeping. So guess what? I hired a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And it was the best decision I ever made, and I had to be like, okay, well, yes, it's going to be this much a month, but I don't have to worry about any of these things. I can just oversee, certain things, but I don't have to worry about it. And I think that that's a thing as well, is like, know what your strengths and weaknesses are, because there's going to be hard stuff and you're not expected to know everything. But if you can be as prepared as possible for all the things, that's when you're setting yourself up for success, in my eyes, of like, what can you prepare for the most, and not just be like, I'm going to do this because I'm so in love with yoga. Like the love of the yoga will help you get through when things are hard.
Totally.
Because although we don't want to create that mindset of everything's going to be hard, but the reality is we live in a world where things happen. And like I didn't know that, the world was going to flip upside down 3 months after I opened. It was hard. And, yes, I looked at the bright side and I kept pushing forward. And even since then, stuff happens. Like, it's what it is. You'll have members that, unfortunately, like you'll have members you'll have to have hard discussions with to be like, hey, this isn't appropriate what you're doing, or I need to keep the integrity. You're going to have teachers that come on board that end up not liking you because you're not appeasing everything that they want, or you've had to pull them in line because they're not keeping up with what their, responsibilities are when they're at the studio, and it's not going to feel good. So I know I've been on a bit of a tangent there, but hopefully that's helpful, is just, sit down, any of you that are thinking about doing it, do it, go for it, but sit down and really think, okay, what's my strong points? Where do I need to learn more? How can I look at the business side of things? And am I prepared to do hard things? Am I prepared to have hard conversations? Am I prepared to, cut back on your own spending? Right? That's a big one. Like, anyone wants any budget advice, come to me, because like, trust me, my budget was so tight because I knew like, hey, this is what I've got to do for these few years to make this work so that I can have some more abundance, freedom afterwards, which is exactly what's happened, So yeah, I know that was a lot, but
No,
hopefully
it's
that
really
was.
good stuff. And I'm glad you brought that up because I do feel like sometimes teachers are working for studios and they build a good following, their classes are well attended, and they kind of think to themselves like, hey, I would love to have a space where like people just came to me, I could take more of the profits, I could build my own ideal schedule. And I think that there's a really cool thing that I think has come out of the pandemic is that I think you can do that in an online capacity now as an independent yoga teacher without having to have necessarily other yoga teachers that you need to manage, physical space that you need to manage and pay for. So I feel like we can kind of really create our own businesses with all the software and stuff that's available now without having like the physical space. But I think in terms of actually running a studio, it's like you're going to wear a lot of hats. Like you're not just going to be a yoga teacher anymore. Like I think that a lot of yoga teachers don't realize what goes into them being able to show up and have
People
20
there.
bodies sitting in the room in front of them.
Yeah. And
In a space with like light and heat and music if they wanted, and all the things.
Yeah, and all the things, because there's a lot that goes into the background of that. And, you kind of forget or don't realize when you just get to turn up and you get paid for your class and then there's people there and you're like, woohoo. And like, yes, we all do our own promoting and things like that. But, from a business side, like there's a lot that I've had to do behind the scenes to get people through our doors, to know that we're there. Yeah. So yeah, you're totally spot on. But hey, if anyone's doing it on their own, just go for it, right? If you're doing your online thing, like go for it, do it, put yourself out there. But the things that I mentioned are definitely for if you're thinking about opening a physical brick and mortar space. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, very good considerations to have. And I think that if you're intimidated by running your own independent business, then maybe just take a pause before you consider running a studio, or maybe you find somebody who has that business mentality that you can co-run with or something like that. Because it is very much like I feel like most yoga teachers who do best, they wear the hat of the entrepreneur. But
Mhm.
I feel like when you're a yoga studio owner, it's like you don't really have a choice other than wearing that if you want to be
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah, like I have to wear many hats, the
Yeah, many
boss
hats.
hat, the entrepreneur hat, the marketing hat, the delegating hat, the also friendly face hat, the yeah,
Hmm.
the check in the books hat, the how do I pay my bills hat, the
I mean,
pick
who's going to
things
clean
up.
the studio hat? Is it
Yeah,
me?
exactly. Like who's cleaning? Like what am I organizing? Oh, I've got three different teachers calling out this week and I don't have enough teachers to fill the spots. What do I do hat? Like,
Hmm.
so there's a lot, but yeah, so all the things I mentioned, definitely for that physical brick and mortar studio space where you're hiring other people, think about as much as you possibly can, and just be as prepared as possible. So, although, like I said, you don't want to create that bad, future or anything, but, having a realistic, like, okay, what happens if this happens? What happens if
Hmm.
I don't have enough members in the first couple of months, like to pay my bills? What do I have a backup? Do I have 6 months worth of being able to support myself and the space? Things
Hmm.
like that. But if
Yeah,
you're,
absolutely.
or maybe try doing it just for yourself first. Because if you can do it for yourself, like I know that it wasn't a yoga studio, but a friend of mine, and he was in the personal training space, and he really excelled in personal training, and he got to that place where he built his brand just of him personal training so much that he has been able to open a space and it is doing well. So he kind of did, the combination of what you mentioned before and then turned it into a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So
I love that because it's like if you can kind of maybe like run your own membership, have people purchasing packages, be running your own classes, and you're getting like good success with that. And then people are saying, like, hey, we'd love to like come to a space. Like that's really great feedback for you to then go, okay, is this something that I could do? I have a yoga teacher that I worked with who that's how she opened her studio, and her studio has been quite successful over the last, I guess, 5, almost 6 years. So that's
right.
she taught for a long, long, long time, built a really decent following, and then listened to her. She listened to her people basically,
Yeah, it
and
was
they
like, this is
they
the
wanted a
time, it's
studio, so
ready.
she opened a studio.
That's fantastic. I love hearing stories like that. Yeah. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, listening to that timing, sometimes it's just timing.
Absolutely. And so I'm curious, this is kind of more of a broader question, just in your career in general, but what are some of the biggest business lessons that you've learned over your time as a yoga teacher, yoga studio owner, all the things?
Yeah, biggest lessons. I think always having always having clarity, maybe like as in when I was a teacher, really understanding what's expected of me, what's expected of me in this space, what is my roles, what is my duties, what am I expected to do? Because I think that if you know your expectations, then it's harder to make mistakes. I think as a studio owner, I try to be I'm very particular, and I am because I want my business to have consistency. So I'm very, very particular with my teachers of, how they greet people, how the studio has to look at all times. What are the things that they have to do when they're setting up and, packing up after their class. You know, I think that just having that very clear, transparent, this is what is expected. So, and like I said, that goes both ways of, um, as a teacher, cool, find out what's expected of you. And if you're not sure, ask a question. I tell my teachers, or especially if anyone's newer coming on board, and I'm like, hey, I know this was a lot of information. I'd always rather you contact me to ask if you're unsure than to wing it and there be a mistake or an issue. Um, Whereas like contact me and double check and I'm happy to let you know. But I think that clarity, that transparency, and that way you've got clear direction as well. My
Hmm.
teachers know exactly what's expected of them because I'm like, no, you have to tidy up the blankets after every single class. There is no exception, like at all, ever. You have to sweep the
Yeah.
room after every class. Like that's just what it is. Or, you greet people and this is the greeting that we say so that everyone gets the information that they need, you know? But yeah, I think that's probably a big one. Like just be very clear, right? Like understand exactly what's expected,
Hmm.
which
Yeah. clearly
Yeah.
communicate too. I feel like that's one of your responsibilities as a business owner when you have people who work for you, is like to set the expectations and then clearly communicate them.
Yeah. Like I even have when Peaches come on, I actually have an agreement form that we go through, and we go through it together, and it's very clear, and there's some things in there that are just, they seem silly, but it's like, no, like there's just there should be no questions. Like I have touched on every point to make sure that you're like, oh, this is it. Like, okay, this is what I can and can't do. This is what's expected. This is what I should teach, like things like that. So I think
Yeah.
just communication, clarity, transparency. And if you are a business owner or a studio owner, I think having that clarity of what you want and expect for yourself as well and for your space, so that there isn't wishy-washy, like, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. But then another time you're like, wait, why didn't this get done? And you're like, just be clear, be consistent. And that's another big thing, is consistency really is key. If you can be consistent, then people will keep coming back, members wise. It's when the
Hmm.
consistency isn't there that people don't know what they're coming in and expecting, and this is for any business, not just, a yoga or meditation space or a studio, but consistency is key.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's a great one.
Cool.
Amazing. Those are great business lessons. Is there anything else you want to share?
Hire a bookkeeper. No.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
seriously.
um, yeah. I'm trying to think what else. I think that, if anyone is really wanting to do it, like definitely go for it. It's going to be scary no matter what. I think if you put in that work and effort, it's going to be hard, but why not do all the hard stuff in the beginning? Because then it makes the hard stuff when it comes up, more doable. You can keep moving forward. But I also think that the passion, if you have the passion for it, it will help you in those tough times,
Yeah.
that just the tough times of life. And like you mentioned before, it was such a great point. If you really don't have certain aspects that are, in your repertoire, why not find someone that does? I think, I've heard of it before where like two yogis, that are friends that open a studio and then it fails. It's like, yeah, because you were both two yogis. What you
Mm.
needed someone there that was the business side or the more analytical side of things, or delegating, hiring out, even if you don't want them to be a business partner, finding those places of, hey, I don't know how to do this, or I don't want to do it. Who can? You'll
Yeah.
always find someone that can.
Yeah, absolutely. Having, a manager or somebody who can help you with
Mhm.
their social media, karma
Yep,
cleaners, like whatever it is. There's lots of
definitely.
ways to bring people into your team. And you can,
Exactly.
yeah, totally have co-owners if you want, but if that's not what you're looking to
Yeah.
do, that's not your vibe, then you can just bring people on as contractors.
Yes, and that's another big thing. I probably so I'm a sole owner, and I'm very glad. So anyone that's out there that's listening to this that is like, oh, should I have a business partner? And deep down you don't want to, I would say don't do it. Don't have a business partner because you think you have to or you should. Definitely, you can contract out work. And then that way you are the one that has the final say all the time, which I know for me and my personality is something that I am happy with. And I'm always happy to hear other things, but I'm glad that when it comes down to it, it's my decision, because it is
Mhm.
what I created. So anyone out there that, yeah, is not the biggest fan of thinking about a business partner, don't do it and just contract out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
Ask for
that.
help. Ask for help. You'll be surprised how many people, when you're starting a business, like I have friends that have businesses in totally different things. Like, one of my dear friends owns a gun range. And I was like, hey,
Mhm.
can we have coffee? Can I buy you coffee? Can I pick your brain about business stuff? The amount of great business advice he gave me was incredible.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always people out there that are happy to help or chat or, connect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Amazing. I love that. That's so much good information. And I feel like this has just been so fun. I could keep picking your brain, but I feel like here is a good place to wrap up. So, can you leave us with sharing a little bit about where people can go to find you, find your studio, all that good stuff?
Of course, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like we could chat forever. My name is Alexandra Charles Kersey, and then my studio is Soul Tribes Yoga and Meditation, and that would be our website is Soul Tribes HTX, as in Houston, Texas.com. And then it's the same for Facebook or Instagram, Soul Tribes HTX. And then if anyone wanted to email or get in contact, it is info@soultribeshtx.com. So,
Perfect. Thank you so much for all this great information that you shared. And hopefully if I'm in Houston sometime in the future, hopefully I can come check out your studio. And anyone in the area, definitely go check out Alexandra's studio.
Yeah, please do. I would love to have you, Amanda. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, I'm always open to chat as well. Or hey, happy to give some business tips if anyone needs.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. You too. Have a great afternoon.
All right, my friends, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Alexandra. As always, make sure you go and check her out, give her some love, follow along. If you're in the Houston, Texas area, definitely go check out Soul Tribes Yoga and Meditation. Hopefully the next time I'm in the Texas area, I can go give it a visit. And a big thank you to Offering Tree and Magic Mind for sponsoring this episode of the show. Make sure you go check them out, give them some love, see how they can support you in your yoga business. And of course, thank you for listening. Thanks for sharing the episode. Thanks for supporting the show and all that goodness. All right, that's all from me. We'll be back next week. Okay, bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomeyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomeyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.